In this video, I'm going to talk about how to break immersion by breaking the rules of the fictional world. Salam, my name is Mustafa. I'm a game developer. I currently work on indie games that I self-develop and self-publish on Steam. I have one game on Steam right now, which is a narrative-driven tower defense game called Nexus Defenders. And I have another game, Beware Tomorrow, which is a first-person stealth horror game. You can wishlist it on Steam. So in The Last of Us Season 2, there is a scene in which Ellie, who is a small, very young woman, maybe around 5 feet tall, definitely around or under 100 pounds, she's sparring with a man who's over 6 feet tall, over 200 pounds. She puts him into an arm bar and makes him tap out. Some people might look at this and say this is a small detail, it doesn't matter. She's more skilled than him. She has better training. The thing is, though, to most people, this will break immersion. This comes off as fantasy because women can't do this. Even if she is more skilled than him, she's half his size. Regardless of how skilled she is, she's going against a man who is much bigger and stronger than her. Skill makes a huge difference in a fight if physicality is not a factor. Even if she were the same height as him, she'd still more likely be weaker than him because men's muscles are more dense than women's muscles. No matter how much some people want to ignore that, there is a biological difference between men and women. This breaking of immersion is called narrative discontinuity. Narrative discontinuity is when the story breaks its own logic. When you're world building a story, there are lots of assumptions that the audience will make if the rules aren't laid out clearly. For example, if it takes place on our Earth, whether it's modern day or in the past or maybe even in the future like post-apocalypse, then we're going to assume certain things match our world. But if the setting takes place in a fictional setting such as medieval fantasy, science fiction, cyberpunk, then there are more liberties that can be taken. Those who are writing the story can come up with basically whatever they want, as long as there is a believable reason as to why it is. If people have superpowers and a man and a woman fight each other, then it becomes more believable that they're fighting each other due to the fact that they have superpowers, and that acts as an equalizer. The downside to this, though, is that at a certain point, the audience no longer understands the severity of the situation. Like just about every MCU movie at this point, at the third act, everyone's just flying around. Someone gets punched and then they get launched 300 feet away. Does it hurt after they land from that? Who knows? It looks like they got hit by a pillow and they just flew away. But at the very least, they use the world building to explain why men and women can fight each other on equal terms. Without this explanation of having superpowers and a man and woman fight each other, then it becomes more unbelievable when the woman easily beats the man, especially when she takes on multiple guys at the same time. This is the narrative discontinuity I'm talking about. If there's no in-world explanation as to why she can beat 5 guys on her own and she's half their size, that makes no sense. That breaks immersion. Same when it comes to social norms. If the world takes place in our world or a world similar to ours, then we expect similar social norms. Let's say a character is out in the public and then acts crazy. You expect all the people that are around that character to respond appropriately and be like, this guy is crazy. Let's take a look at Assassin's Creed Shadows real quick. This is a game I already talked about on the channel. You get to play as Yasuke, who is an African brought to feudal Japan. An immersion-breaking aspect of this game is that none of the NPCs react to Yasuke as if he is an outsider. He literally is an outsider. He looks different. He's taller than everybody else. For every single person in Japan within this game, this is the first African they've ever seen. They should be surprised. They should be shocked. They should show some sort of emotion other than being neutral. In reality, people would act weird. People would say and do racially insensitive things. I'm not saying they would be racist, but at the very least, they would be racially insensitive. They'd either want to say or do weird things like ask to touch his hair. This would be much more believable than for everybody just see him and be like, yeah, it's Yasuke. There have been some goofballs online who have been defending this, saying Assassin's Creed is a science fiction game about alien technology and secret societies, and you get to punch the Pope as he uses an alien weapon against you. But those people who are making this defense have a clear misunderstanding of world building. It's important to understand that when the developers of the game, when the publisher of the game says that this is historically accurate, and then the game takes place in a real life place such as Japan, then we expect the social norms to carry over. We expect the world to act the same. And then when fantastical things get introduced, such as alien technology, then that alien technology becomes the in-world explanation as to why they can do certain things. Also, the alien technology within Assassin's Creed is a technology that is not known to the public. This is something that takes place behind the scenes within the secret societies. So that makes it believable within our world, because we can believe that there are secret societies such as the Illuminati that control the world, and they might have alien technology. These two things are not comparable. You cannot compare the alien technology that has its own in-game explanation and then compare that to the way people act socially within the world that's supposed to represent our world. These are not the same thing. And if you do compare those two things as if they're the same thing, then you do not have an understanding of narrative world building. Abby from The Last of Us Part 2 got lots of criticism, not only for her character, but for her design. First off, I want to say that it's okay to have designs that push norms, but you need to understand that first and foremost, people are going to judge the visuals of everything. It doesn't matter how much you say, don't judge a book by the cover, wait until you experience the story. Maybe the character is pretty good in the story. Don't just judge off of visuals. It is a losing battle to tell people not to judge off of visuals, because that's literally how people base their initial opinion on something, is by the visuals. You process through your eyes a lot faster than everything else. If you're someone who creates media or stories, you need to understand that people will always judge what you're making off of the visuals before anything else, no matter how much you tell them not to. But aside from people making judgments off of her design, I'm not saying women shouldn't work out or certain people shouldn't work out. I believe that everybody should try to stay fit. Fitness became a very important thing in my life, and personally, I am disappointed with where I currently am right now. This is where I was 2 years ago before I got laid off and things started falling apart. So I want to ask my audience to encourage me in the comments section by asking me, have you worked out today? If I respond with yes, then push me even more by saying, do more. Anyways, Abby does not make any sense in this world at all, because bodybuilding is a modern day luxury. No matter how much you say, oh, women can look like this, she's based off of a real model. Regardless of that, bodybuilding can only exist in the comfort of modern day. In the post-apocalypse, where food is rationed, you're fighting to survive, you don't have a solid workout schedule with rest days implemented, and you're lacking steroids. It is impossible for a woman to have that physique in the post-apocalypse. She'd have to be eating like 4,000 calories of food a day. This is why the show did not get a buff woman to play Abby. They're not just going to hire any CrossFit woman or female bodybuilder who has no clue how to act. The first criteria is to hire an actor who knows how to act, and if they're going to try to find someone who's that muscular, they're gonna find nobody. Here's the thing with Abby, they made very little attempt to make her work. Yeah, you can find her workout schedule in the game, but it still makes no sense due to all the things I already listed off. When you break realism, there needs to be justification by building a bridge. For a character like Abby to work in the post-apocalypse, they would have to say that she is within a faction that lives within a military facility that has built a very safe society. She has access to gyms. She's able to stick to a workout schedule, a rest schedule. She has access to food. Also, she's given special privileges to consume even more food and also take steroids. Even then, with that explanation, people will go be like, why did they give her special access? Why not give the 6'2" guy special access so he can be as huge as possible, and then he basically be a super soldier to help them out? Even when attempting to come up with an explanation, you gotta cover all your bases to make it make sense. When it comes to having an average sized woman beating up a huge dude, this is just completely irresponsible. We have the audience members who look at this and think this is ridiculous and this is unbelievable. But then you have the other audience members who look at this and get encouraged to be reckless. And that makes it irresponsible to share this type of message. I am not a self-defense expert, but I will reference these 3 channels, which I watch often. Check them out if you want to learn more about self-defense. When it comes to confrontation of danger, the first option should always be de-escalation, and if you can, run. This is especially true for women. When you encourage women to just punch a man in the face because he's a threat, then you're going to put her into more danger because she's going to more likely get punched back. And this is just irresponsible to teach this to women. I'm not saying women should not learn self-defense. They should if they have the ability to take a self-defense class. But de-escalation and avoiding danger are more important because for women, especially average size or smaller women, every guy who poses danger is basically a boss fight. When I was watching WandaVision, there was at least 2 scenes in which this scientist girl who has no combat training at all, she's just a scientist, she beat up 2 guys, maybe even more, I can't really remember. And again, this is just irresponsible because it's encouraging reckless behavior. So when scenes like this happen, who exactly is the target audience? It's definitely not guys because most guys will look at this and be like, that's unbelievable. It's definitely not women either because generally women don't care about power fantasies. And there's going to be some of you who's going to go to comments and say, nuh-uh, women like action too. And sure, women can like action, but not to the same effect as men. Target audience matters. Men and women like different things. Surveys and media studies show that women prefer narratives focused on relationships, emotional resilience, cleverness and wit, triumph through intelligence or teamwork. A 2014 Nielsen report shows that 84% of romance book buyers are women. And just to find a statistic, I've never heard this movie before, but the opening weekend of 27 Dresses, 75% of the audience were women. 27 Dresses is apparently a rom-com. Point being, there's a difference between what men generally like and women generally like. And power fantasies are generally more for men. So what's going on here when women are beating up men in media? It could be ideological messaging trying to state that women can be just as strong as men, which is completely untrue because it's biologically untrue. Some women can be as strong as some men. But if we're looking at a whole, we're looking at all men, we're looking at all women. As a whole, men are built different than women. Aside from ideological messaging, what else can it be? It could be corporate pressure, such as ESG score or executives trying to push for it. And then aside from that, it can be just lazy writing. The writers just generally don't understand how to write a strong woman. They think that strength only comes from physical strength, and that is laziness and a misunderstanding of the genders. So how do you write a strong female character? You can do so by making her smart. You can make her clever. But writing her to be physically strong without having any type of in-world explanation as to why she's physically strong, then you're basically just writing a man and saying it's a woman. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments below if you learned anything. Please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Take care. Salam.